Purple Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
I will ride with this group.
Seriously, man. Please.
And away we go.
Hey, it's a bonus episode on Wednesday. Wednesday is when the week begins in the National Football League, where you flush any good feelings. As Kevin O'Connell said at his press conference today, nothing that happened last week matters. Nothing that's happened so far matters. This is Green Bay Packers week. We got the sports dad, Judd Zulgad, in the house at the Vikings practice facility right now, where he will give us a rundown on what he observed today throughout the building. But let's first talk about that tune-up, Judd Zulgad, that fall football season tune-up from our folks at Livia.
Absolutely. And, you know, sports dad's lost weight throughout his life at times, gained weight back. But I decided this time, you know, the folks at Livia helped me so much a couple of years ago that it was time for a tune-up. And so I went in, and in my first 2 weeks back on the program, I have lost approximately 11 pounds.
Wow,
That's right. That's exactly right.
Wow.
And I'm going to tell you right now, thank you. I'm going to tell you right now, you know what's nice about this program? No guilt trips, no like, oh, you've gained weight back. They help you drop the weight. It's nothing but positivity, and they'll help you as well get rid of those unwanted pounds. The one-on-one support, as I just said, is absolutely phenomenal. Join their nutrition plan today and get your first 8 weeks free. Plus, their medical offers weight loss medications that can help you for accelerated results. LIVEA.com, Livia.com, 855-GO-LIVEA, locations all throughout the metro. I go to the Tonka one. It's fantastic. But anyway, 855-GO-LIVEA, Livia.com. They're going to help you as well take off those unwanted pounds.
Well, where do you want to start here? So Kevin O'Connell press conference, Vikings scaling back and not doing a full practice, but doing a walkthrough. So you take us wherever you want here, Jeff.
Well, my guess is, and I tried to ask O'Connell about this, and he sort of bobbed and weaved, I thought, a little bit. But my guess is that with the way that this team is playing, which is, incredibly, especially for them, physical style, that because the Wednesday in week 4 is usually not a walkthrough, like you continue to practice. Now by week 16, yes, things change. But I think that O'Connell is also very aware and cognizant of what he's asking for from his players. And so I think what we saw was, and we don't get to go watch those. So if it's a walkthrough, it's closed. So I don't know what took place. If it's a practice, we get to watch stretching and the individual drills, as they call them. But I think that this is very much a nod to the fact that this team is playing well, 3-0, and the fact that he knows he's got a veteran team here too. Keep in mind, interestingly enough, despite the fact that they do have some young players, this is one of the older teams in the league. And so O'Connell, being aware of that, I think is being cautious here. And I'm sure that they will practice on Thursday. It's Packers week. So sort of interesting that they didn't do a full practice today, but we're seeing a lot of things from O'Connell that we possibly haven't seen. I would say edgier. He's a little bit more feisty than he used to be. Talked about, it's been talked about his dark side. But I think what we saw today is very much an awareness of, if you're going to go out and attempt to kick an opponent's ass for 3 hours on Sunday, I'm also going to try to pull back at times because I don't want to wear my players out.
Yeah. It is. Yeah, it is kind of crazy that this is like one of the 3 or 4. Is it like the second oldest roster in the league?
It's one of the top 3, I think,
out.
At least. Yeah, I think you're right.
And some of that's skewed by you got Harrison Smith, and then when you sign Stephon Gilmore, you got older.
Shaq Griffin, it's not young.
Right. And then long snapper is like
DePaula. Yeah, he's
DePaula.
like 52.
Yeah, he's definitely old.
Yeah, he is.
So, and also if you look at the youngest teams in the NFL up to the oldest, it's not like there's a 5-year gap in average age where one team is 31, the other team. But yeah, when you have a handful of veteran players, when you have guys that are like Brian O'Neill had an Achilles a couple years ago, Aaron Jones is 29, had injury issues last year. I have zero problem with this. In fact, there's a chance that Kevin O'Connell planned this 6 months ago, just looking at what happened last year, and a lot of what happened last year was incompetent quarterback play and your season derailed. But Yeah, interesting. You don't see this very often. Like you said, later, once you get into November and December, okay, oftentimes you got veterans who just straight up aren't practicing at all. But hey, he's made a lot of great chess moves with this team, and so it's hard to push back at anything that anything that we would consider like unorthodox.
Yeah,
I think
I'm
at this
fine with
point you just sort of trust Kevin O'Connell until something proves otherwise.
Exactly right. So that was the first thing, and for this week, it is interesting. I'm with you. Like, I'm not criticizing it. I think if it works, great. I do think that when you ask a team to play as physical as he is asking this team to play, that there probably do have to be sacrifices from somewhere to get them rest. Second thing is, I asked O'Connell today about being 3-0, and this team started, in training camp, over under 6.5 wins. No expectations. No one aside from like Purple Daily was talking about this team. Nobody thought that they'd be good. The national pundits thought that they would actually be the last place team in the division behind the Bears. And so I said, how do you manage this now? Because you're coaching you're coaching still young men who go on, go watch Fox, ESPN for sure. Certainly scroll through things like Twitter and TikTok, at least some of them.
Hey, JJ McCarthy just followed me on Instagram a couple days ago.
Exactly. Congratulations,
very
too.
Exciting, very exciting for both of us, really. I mean, now he gets all this great content. So, yeah.
Oh, and I'm sure he's a big PD fan. But the thing is, you can say, well, just ignore it, tune it out. Well, it's 2024. That's not going to happen on, a 53-man roster, right? I'm sure some vets don't care. But I said, how do you manage this now? Because when you started, it was basically, hey, it's all quiet. You beat the Giants. Oh, you beat the Giants. Good for you. You beat the Niners. It's like, oh, whoa, what's that? And then you kick the Texans' ass, and it's like Colin Cowherd has the Vikings third. Stephen A. Smith had him like second or third in his rankings. And I thought his response was really interesting because it was this. He said that he actually addressed this on the opening night of training camp because he felt that this team was going to be good. And his exact words were, as a coach, you don't like to be in the prediction business, but he said, I thought this team might be good or would be good. And so he basically said that he started to try to get ahead of the game here, and as he put it, form a foundation for future success by when nobody expected a damn thing, cautioning them about why they're playing. He also, and Phil, we keep going back to it, but it's so important. He also keeps alluding to the fact that this roster is filled with guys that love football. And it sounds cliche, and we play the button bar, and it's hilariously funny, but it's true. And his point is, what we need is, if you love to hear First Take talk about you, not really what they want. They want guys that are like, oh, that's great, that's fine. But what I want is to get an opportunity to play and thrive. Now, I asked Shaq Griffin about this as well, and I said, do you recall that at the start of training camp when KO told you this? And he said, yeah, but he didn't have to, and here's why. He said, coming out of the off-season workouts, you could feel something special here. And he said that for the first time in his National Football League career, Shaq has deleted all apps. So he said, I used to be on TikTok, Twitter, I'm sure Instagram. He said, I deleted them all. And that this team, and this gets back to it being, in some cases, an older team, this team is filled with so many guys who feel that they still have something to prove. They were all jettisoned, right? I mean, hell, Sam Darnold was literally left on the quarterback garbage heap for Wednesday to get picked up. And so his response was, we didn't need that necessarily because we were so focused in on the goal here, which all sounds cliche, but I'll tie it together with one thing. After the game on Sunday, Aaron Jones talked about this, and he talked about the fact that at some point, I think it was in his mind during training camp, he felt something special here. And again, he's a guy, I mean, the Green Bay Packers tried to cut his salary for a second consecutive year. And in his mind, and laugh at this if you want, in his mind, disrespected him. So it's the more I talk to guys, it's an interesting collection of people, a lot of whom feel like they can still play and are trying to prove something. The only question is, because some of these guys are long in the tooth. I guess, can they hold up for an entire season? But their whole thing is the disrespect wasn't the fact that the prognosticator said 6.5 on wins. The disrespect was what their former teams did by cutting them, by spurning them. It's an interesting thread that I hadn't thought about a lot until I was talking to Griffin about that, and it's sort of all come full circle to me.
You know, man, there's a lot of good nuggets in what you just said. I'll go back to the Aaron Jones thing. So Aaron Jones saying that it feels like there's a little something special here. He's been on a lot of different teams. He's been on some really good teams that went to the NFC Championship game in Green Bay. And even like taking the feeling of something special, which goes beyond wins and losses. Because we've talked about the 2016 Vikings, and our guy Alex Boone was on that team, and our guy Jeremiah Searles and other players on that team. They were 5-0, and it didn't feel like it was something special because the chemistry was off. The coach and the players saw some things differently. There were some injuries. So it's like wins and losses. It's not automatically we have a good record, therefore we feel something special. There's something culturally beyond that needs to be built by the team and by the coaching staff. And I think Kevin O'Connell is great at creating that feeling. Not a lot of coaches, because there's the X's and O's component, the scheming component to being a great coach. And Brian Flores has that on defense times 100. And Kyle Shanahan has that on offense. But then there's like the culture building side. And Harrison Smith was quoted a couple days ago. I'm getting this from Matthew Collar, Purple Insider, and a couple other guys had it too. Harrison Smith on the Vikings chemistry, quote, "There's a lot of purpose with joy and with a determined mindset throughout the week. It's not like, we got to go to practice, we got to go to meetings. There's none of that. We're doing stuff we all believe in and we all like to work together." And this might sound crazy, but if you can relate it to if you're a listener or a viewer out there, if you've ever had a job or ever had a manager or a boss that just makes it not dreadful to go to work every day at least, and then maybe even you look forward to going to work every day because you love the work that you're working on, you love your coworkers, maybe you love the building, like it's just a great facility in the case of the Vikings. There's a lot of value in, yes, X's and O's and making sure you have the right players and all those things and the chess match against the Packers, but also just building a culture where guys wake up in the morning and love driving to the office and grinding film with each other and practicing, because a 4-month regular season, 4+ months, more like 5-month regular season with training camp and all the different things in the off season, it can be a grind. And you may think as a fan, well, these guys all make a bunch of money to play a game. Yeah, and a lot of them kind of dread going to work every single day unless you get in the right situation. So I just like the Harrison Smith quote, the Aaron Jones stuff. One of the biggest compliments I can give Kevin O'Connell is he has built a culture here, and the Wilfs with the facility and everything,
sure,
where guys wake up and are looking forward to going to practice every day. There's something to be said for that.
And I think the starting point to that point is this. They have found guys that want to play football from the get-go. So, like, I think the chemistry is built by the innate feeling of, I love what I do. I love the sport. I mean, we've talked about this 1,000 times. There is no easier sport to play and hate than this sport. It's a brutal sport. Practice sucks. Games are fun, but I mean, the long-standing line is it feels like going through a car crash once a week. Like, there's a legitimate thing to, I love football. Harrison Smith loves the sport. Aaron Jones, I think, loves it. Like, they have a majority of guys. Stephon Gilmore seems to love it, relish the cat and mouse game, X's and O's. I mean, Brian Flores has a defense that literally he is instructing like through practice, and he's done a great job. But they are making the play calls after seeing what the opponent is going to do, and that's not Flores. They're very well prepared, but it's such an interesting dynamic because you can have guys that are good athletes, but if they don't love it, and a lot of it is hard to love, I think it becomes difficult. On the O'Connell front, I think one of the reasons why he's good at what you just talked about is this. So it's one thing if he had, and he did not say this, but if he had gotten up the opening night of training camp and said, okay, boys, here's the deal. 6.5 wins. You guys suck? Do you think you suck? us against them, right? Which we've seen used 1,000 times. But I think what really fuels his teams, and I know what fuels him, is the fact that he still to this day, and I think he will go to his grave with questions about what happened to him as a player. 3rd round pick, quarterback, clearly didn't lack the intelligence to play in this league. What was lacking? Well, he never got his confidence, and he might not have been a great player, but the reality is he also, in his mind, never got the chance. So everything he does is tinged with, how can I not do the same thing to my players? And also, I'm going to show people. I mean, O'Connell's an interesting dude because this whole dark side thing, it's out there now and it's fun to talk about. But the reality is, I mean, I've heard things from the day he got here about his front face. He's great with people. He's a great speaker. But the front-facing Kevin O'Connell that you see is not necessarily him. He is a massive competitor. I'm going to tell you right now, carries a chip on his shoulder that's an iceberg. And I think the reality of that, though, is what sets him in a position to, one, say, I believe that you guys are going to be good, and so here's what we have to be cautious about, because he's got that confidence. But also, I think everything he does in the us against them comes from the gut, not the I'm going to manipulate this team.
Yes, I agree.
Super, super intriguing, and I think there's a lot to unpack there.
The dark side, and it was a great column by Mark Craig, Star Tribune. It's not a put on, it's not fake. And somebody was quoted. It might have been, oh my God, the old Colts GM who's in their front office. Ryan
Grigson.
Ryan Grigson.
Yep.
Because I think Grigson was quoted. Somebody was quoted in the article saying,
I think he was.
Some coaches feel the need to raise their voice and get mad and show everyone that I'm coaching. I'm mad and look at me coaching. And if you do that, players can sniff it out. These are grown men. You can maybe manipulate and trick a college kid if you're 18, 19. But if you're going outside of who you really are as a human and a coach, a 28, a 30, a 35-year-old, a Harrison Smith, a Stephon Gilmore, they can sniff it out. And so he's clearly not that. By the way, the injury report just came out. If you want some breaking news within this bonus episode.
O'Connell got testy with my guy Seifert when Kevin tried to sort of push him on who was going to practice or not. We got a little bit of the dark side right there, a little snarky.
I saw that.
From the head coach.
I was watching the stream.
Uncomfortable, but fun to watch.
Yeah, he was like, I will keep you guys posted on the injury update.
On the injury report. Yeah, exactly.
So, okay, here are the Vikings listed. And now, again, it was a walkthrough today, so they're kind of estimating what the participation is. And I will say there were 3 did not practice guys, which is a huge red flag that they did not participate in a walkthrough practice. But Garrett Bradbury, ankle, did not participate in the walkthrough or did not practice if it would have been a full practice.
Yep.
Ivan Pace Jr. with the ankle did not practice. And then Jay Ward, who's been on mostly special teams, with a knee did not practice. Let's come back to Bradbury in a second.
Sure.
Jordan Addison, ankle limited. I would think that means he might be tracking to play this weekend.
Yep.
And then Jonathan Bullard, defensive lineman, knee limited. Kamu Grugier-Hill, who had the big interception in that game, limited with a knee. Josh Oliver, limited with a wrist. Dallas Turner, who was out, limited with a knee. And then Sam Darnold, full participant with that knee.
Okay, good.
That's a good sign. Jordan Love, by the way, limited with the knee. I think he's turning the corner here, probably going to play this weekend.
Okay, because he was the same last week. I don't know if it was all 3 days, but he definitely, by the end of the week, was able to go through part of practice, didn't play. I think it's a very interesting question. Do you play a hobbled Jordan Love or a quarterback who's not as good in Malik Willis as Jordan Love, but actually might cause this defense more headaches?
Yeah, I mean, if you're the Packers, with either one of these guys, I don't think you can drop back 30, 35 times without those guys making mistakes. So I think if I'm the Packers and if I'm the Vikings, I probably, you can't go too far like trying to guess what the game plan is going to be, but
right.
I would expect 35 or 40 rushing attempts by the Packers.
Oh, yeah.
Especially if it's Malik Willis. And I think it's going to be Jordan Love, but Some of the other guys who showed up here, and I don't know what their designation was last year, but Jair Alexander limited with a quad, Kenny Clark, defensive lineman, limited with a toe, Luke Musgrave, tight end, was limited with a quad, Josh Myers, offensive lineman, shoulder limited, Jaden Reed, wide receiver, calf, quad, limited. So they actually have Zach Tom, offensive lineman, quad. They have like 10 or 11 guys on their injury report this week, the Packers.
Wow.
So we'll see how those guys progress throughout the week. But yeah, this is going to be the old black and blue Packers with the way they've been running. Vikings with their emphasis on playing physical football. This is going to be football. Yeah, brutal.
I think you're right. I think the Packers are going to attempt to run the ball down the Vikings' throat, which is why I'm curious if they do start Jordan Love, is there going to be a package of plays for Willis just based on his ability to scramble and run? Because, yeah, I don't see a way that you're going to beat the Vikings by dropping Jordan Love back, for instance, consistently with a bad knee. I think that's a recipe for disaster. But the one thing is, aside from week 2, the Vikings in the run game have not been tested a ton. Now, in week 2, they gave up yards. They still won. But I think if I'm the Packers and I'm, debating what well to go to, I think I'm going to the run game well, especially at home, and eat clock then, which means, if nothing else, you keep Justin Jefferson off the field.
Yeah. Hey, we'll get to a few other nuggets here from Judd's day at week 4 Vikings practice, but those pests, you had a little mouse problem there, whether it's mice or other pests. Spidex Pest Control is here for our audience.
Yeah, house in the good old SLP was built in the 50s, and yes, some mice had inhabited my house, and Sports Dad and Sports Mom, Dawn, finally got sick of that, and so we called our friends at Spidex Pest Control, and they have set the wheels in motion to eradicate those rodents, get them out of our house, and I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to be far, far more comforting not to say, I wonder if I'll see a small mouse run across my floor. Don't like that. Spidex doesn't just stop at mice. It's fall. It's deck time, right? We talk about that. Box elder bugs and wasps can ruin a day, but not with Spidex. Dikembe Mutombo, get those things out. And there's an offer right now for Score North listeners and viewers, $125 off your first service by calling 952-333-8813 or check them out at Spidex.com. I will spell that because it's SPIDEXX.com. They also serve outside the state. So go online, Spidex.com, and see if they can help you get rid of your rodent or pest problem.
Also, this is the final weekend of the Minnesota Renaissance Festival, a special festival Friday this week, open Friday for Ladies and Lords Shopping Day. Discounted admission ticket includes wine, gift bag discounts, and more. It's the final weekend and also open this Friday, renaissancefest.com. That's renaissancefest.com. You can throw axes, wield swords, watch live armored combat jousting, enjoy delicious food, tasty turkey legs, Nordic meatballs, 16 stages of entertainment. RenaissanceFest.com. Let's go through a few other observations from you out at Vikings practice today.
Sure. So to go back to my conversation with Shaq Griffin, the veteran cornerback who's in his first year with the Vikings, you might have seen that, and it wasn't just because the game was a blowout. You might have seen his snap count increased, I believe, to a season high on Sunday. I asked about that because previously, for instance, against San Francisco, it was Gilmore traveling with ordinarily the Niners' top receiver, Byron Murphy Jr. on the boundary, Murphy going inside, and Griffin playing in the nickel or dime, if you include what they do at safety. But anyway, long story short, that changed on Sunday. And one thing I noticed early on and throughout the game was Gilmore and Griffin and Murphy a little bit, but I think it was the two vets more and more rotated series at times. Now, Gilmore still played more. But I was curious about that. Griffin said that was on purpose, that they've talked to him about it, and it sounds like part of the plan. And this again goes to what they're asking from veteran players, so it's fairly smart. They do not want to expose them consistently to drive after drive, right? So the feeling is Gilmore is a huge pickup. There's no doubt about that. But we're in week 3 going into week 4. And I think Flores and O'Connell have come up with a plan where they're like, he's incredibly important. The last thing that we want him to do is be worn to a nub by week 15. So I would look for those rotations to continue. It's weird because it's like a defensive line rotation in some ways, but you don't see that at corner, right? But in this case, you do. It's definitely on purpose. And it's not like they don't like one or they don't like the other. It is because of their age and they want to keep them as fresh as possible. You know, it's funny, Phil, because a lot of what they're doing is about football-y football, right? We're going to go hit guys. We're going to kick their butts. Basically try to run our opponent off the field, but there's also an acknowledgement of if we're going to do that, we cannot beat up guys, especially the vets. So look for that rotation, unless I'm sure one struggles mightily. Look for that rotation to continue as a way to keep them both fresh as possible.
Yeah, I'm just going through snap counts here. Now, like Cam Bynum plays pretty much every snap. Even Harrison Smith, Blake Cashman's out there all the time. Metellus, there's guys that are just going to be out there almost every snap. But they have 16 players who play a lot on defense. And they've even sprinkled in a little bit of Taki Taimani in non-garbage time here and there. But they essentially, when you include Dallas Turner coming back, and Ivan Pace was out last week too, Jihad Ward has played 80 snaps as a backup edge rusher. Jonathan Bullard up front has played 90 snaps. They've got 12 guys who've played at least 100 snaps on defense through 3 games. And in a typical game, you're going to get like 60 to 65, maybe 70 total defensive snaps. So that's, I should go back and compare that to some previous years. I mean, you're not just going to have 11 guys only who play.
Well, the defensive line, right? That goes in waves.
The down linemen and the edge rushers all together. Like there's one. So let's take Cashman out, Pace out, because those guys are inside linebackers. When you take the edge guys and the down linemen, Grenard Van Ginkel, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Jihad Ward being 8. Dallas Turner, 9. And I'll even throw Taki Taimani. I mean, they're literally rotating 10 guys on their defensive front when you count down linemen and edge rushers. It's like a hockey team.
I know.
They're just running guys out.
And I think of all the positions on defense that we talk about, I don't think like a cornerback rotation is not normal.
Yeah, so Gilmore 174, Murphy 170 for snaps, Shaq Griffin 121. And so those guys, it really depends too on if they have 2 or 3 cornerbacks on the field.
Sure.
And by the way, like this would have been, and I don't know if they would have signed Gilmore if Mekhi Blackman goes down, but it'll be interesting if one of those guys gets dinged. What does the rest of the depth? That's the one position where I really do question the depth. If Gilmore goes down,
oh yeah,
are you now picking on some guys?
Yep.
So we'll have to see.
Yep. And Shaq did also say, he said, as far as to go back to the vibes, right? The vibes are great. He said when Gilmore signed, it was like the final piece. He said it clicked. And I think he's exactly right. Because if you didn't have Gilmore playing corner, to what you just said, you're already where you're saying that you fear, which is if a starter gets dinged, who's up next? So his point, and I think he's right, his point was the ability to bring in, which again was created by Cap Room, the ability to bring in Gilmore was massive because it gave the Vikings the ability to take a guy from his couch and working out and plop him into a really intricate defense, but he's played in at least parts of this style before with Flores and basically have no learning curve.
Yeah.
I thought that was intriguing.
Yeah, it's I don't think this chart that I'm looking at counts dead cap. Yeah, it doesn't. So even if you add the $28 million in quarterback dead cap, you know, the Vikings are still, well, I guess technically they'd be tied with the Chiefs when you count that, but part of what's happening here is their books are clear from big quarterback finances after 2024.
Correct.
So you can sign some of these guys. Like Grenard's a great example. Grenard, you're pushing a lot of that money into 2025, 2026. I think it was a 3-year contract, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, you just the freedom to have 16 guys, Gilmore and all these guys, is a luxurious thing for the team.
Absolutely. That's it. That's all I got for you.
It's good. Wow, good clean, a half-hour bonus episode here. Judd at Twin Cities Orthopedic Performance Center. So, yeah, we've got, I don't know, maybe you guys have already exhausted all of our content here today, but if you didn't, we've got the Write That Down predictions from Wednesday. Yesterday, Meat and Potatoes with you and Forno and AJ. Trenches with Boone is up from yesterday, too, a film breakdown of some of the key plays on offense and defense. Tomorrow, we've got Thursday, and he's already texting us reckless speculation ideas. He's got a couple trade things that he wants to go over. We got Feedback Friday. So to those of you who are new to Purple Daily, welcome aboard. This is the heart of the season, obviously, but this is a 365-day-a-year Viking show where oftentimes we're pumping out more than one episode, like today, for instance. So welcome aboard. Awesome start to the season in terms of fan interest and the Vikings just being competitive. So 3-0, it makes our life and job a lot more fun doing this when the Vikings are playing well too. So yeah, we appreciate you guys, and we'll see you tomorrow for a Thursday episode. Purple Daily, daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.